Hello, artists. To start off, we need a piece of drawing paper and a folder to protect our table. Now, the first thing I'll do with my paper, it's turned horizontally. That means it is wide rather than tall. And I'm going to take the two sides and fold them together so that they touch. And once I've folded the paper in half, I'll use my finger to press down on the fold to make a nice crease. This will help us in creating a symmetrical pumpkin shape. Using a black oil pastel, I'm going to start from the top and come down about an inch and make a small dot. And I'm also going to do the same at the bottom. These are not large marks, these are guides to help us. Now I'm going to be drawing a curved line, a bump that goes from the top to the bottom, and if I do it on the left, I will do it on the right to make it symmetrical. The next rib of my pumpkin will be another bump slightly larger, from the top dot to the bottom dot. Again, if I do it on the left, I will do it again on the right so that it is symmetrical. Continue making the ribs of the pumpkin until you feel that it is large enough to be the subject of our work of art. At the top of the pumpkin, draw your stem. For this project, I'm focusing on a limited color palette. That means I'm choosing very few colors. In this case, orange, red, and yellow will be the main colors of my pumpkin. Instead of coloring like it was a coloring sheet, I'm going to be drawing lines of color instead. I want to go from the dot at the top to the dot at the bottom, over and over again. Notice that I'm not going quickly and I'm not drawing lines that are only going halfway up the pumpkin. I always want to start at one dot and finish at the other. My lines can overlap a little. My lines can be free, but notice that I'm staying within the rib shape each time that I draw my lines. Once I'm finished with orange, I'm going to move on to red, and I'm going to repeat the exact same process that I did with the orange pastel. Again, take your time, go from one dot to the next. You'll see that you're creating a texture of the rough pumpkin rind, and that the oil pastels, because they are so creamy, are starting to blend together to create some very interesting colors. Now I choose my brightest color, yellow, and I'm going to repeat the process. But in this case, it is going to be a bit different. Instead of just drawing lines, I am going to go back and forth in the same direction that my orange and red lines were going, but I'm going to be coloring those patches yellow. Now this is going to do two different things. It's going to make sure that the paper is covered so that it looks more complete, but it's also going to blend the orange and the red. This will make yellow, yellow-orange, orange, and red-orange. Next, I will use a brown oil pastel to color in the stem of my pumpkin. I'm also going to add some brown lines from one dot to the next, but notice that I'm only drawing my brown lines on either side of the black lines that I used to create my pumpkin. This is going to create the subtle shadows that I want in my pumpkin to make it look very round and bumpy. I'm going to take the orange that I used before and I'm going to brush the orange oil pastel and color again up and down to follow the shape of my pumpkin ribs, and this is going to do a final blending to make my colors smooth and vibrant. Yayoi Kusama is known for her dots. I'm going to use a black oil pastel, and instead of making random dots, I want to follow along the ribs of my pumpkin. Near the top and the bottom, I will start with a small dot. Then I will make a slightly larger dot, and each time I get closer and closer to the center of the pumpkin, my dots get larger and larger. Notice that I didn't go from the top straight down to the bottom. I went from the top, now at the bottom, back at the top, and back at the bottom. This will make sure that my pumpkin dots are getting larger toward the center of the pumpkin and create that illusion of roundness and fullness. In the next video, I'll show you how to add an interesting background.